Welcome to another edition of Artist Talk on Bob's Radio. My name is Rio Raymond, and every time we try and do different with some of the artists that we get, and in fact, this is definitely an artist who's way different from a lot of the others on the roster. This is India's only commercial side trance artist, Novlik. Welcome to Bob's Radio, man.
Thanks a lot. It's been a great pleasure to connect with you guys, and I'm happy to be here for as probably one of the first guys of my type.
One of the first guys of my type. There's a lot to break in terms of this particular genre of music as well. Now, to just start with, when someone says Psy Trance, I'm going to get into Psy commercial trance, but when someone just says Psy Trance, the notion that somebody has is you got to be on some, drugs. Oh, there you go. Talk about drugs and the bar keeps going back and forth. But, you got to be on something apart from being sober to feel that music or be in that sort of a scenario, right? What is it for you when it comes to these particular thoughts that come in?
Yeah, so I kind of would say that, yes, that is a big notion out there, but there's also a parallel thing to that. Just think of it as if you're not on anything, maybe this is the music that solves that problem.
Probably. That sounds like a different kind of an intoxication.
Or I can tell you how I think of it when I produce a track, for example. So, what I would typically do is I would start making music for anyone and everyone. Then I'll keep adding more and more layers until the point that it sends you into a trance if you choose to focus on it with the lights turned off. That's my goal when I'm making a music, that if you focus on my music with your eyes closed or the lights turned off, and your ears are the only things active, and you're focusing on how the stereo movement is moving, or if you're on an 8.1 and you have something expanding it to an Atmos kind of a audio, then the idea is that there's so much happening in the music. Slowly we progress, it's also progressive. So there's so much happening eventually that if you start from the bass and you keep focusing on all the sounds, you are supposed to be entering a mental state of trance as long as you're peaceful enough in your head. Because if you look at it, how does a hypnotist send you into a trance? They would just give you an overload of information, which takes your brain to a frequency that it cannot handle. So you go into a state of trance, right? That is the logic behind hypnosis. And that's pretty much psychedelic trance as well. If you are able to focus on all the layers of music that we put in, you'll probably be in a state of trance by when you're really out there focused on the sound.
The word focus is a very key word in today's time. Knowing how we've lost focus on a lot of things thanks to the consumption of content, that is something that we can, talk and discuss a little more in detail. But as far as if you were to just say this notion that is there that you got to be on something to enjoy this music, is that true or not?
I make the music pretty much without anything at all. At best, if I'm on something, that is a lot of energy. And when you're able to make the music sober, I believe that a listener can also be sober. And in fact, I have a lot of 60, 70 plus audience too nowadays. Some of them might be family members, some of them might not. And they're definitely not on anything. Otherwise, they might just reach the hospital before they reach anywhere else. And they're fine listening to the music. So I'm not sure that that's the requirement. There would be a kind of psytrance maybe that is more focused on that audience. But then when I call myself a commercial psytrance producer, that is the audience that I'm probably not primarily catering to.
When someone says psytrance and then you say commercial psytrance, the first for a lot of them who understand the terms in music would say, okay, maybe there is more lyrics in this, maybe someone is singing in this particular thing, or maybe it's a little more vibey compared to like your lounge and house of sorts. But you know what? Since you're the first of its kind or the only of its kind in the country, let's have you tell us what is commercial psytrance.
So when you say that that could be the presumption, I don't think it's anything wrong at all. I think that is what it is, because what we do, most of us who are into this style of music, no matter which country we might be from, I think what we are looking for is blending the world of psychedelic trance with the world of normal human music, is what we call it.
Normal human music.
Yeah, that's a joke internal to most of us. Like, whenever I discuss these things with an international artist who I would have connected through a tour or something, that's that's how we address every other style of music as, we call it. So are you using more of normal human music in your track? That's our joke.
So you would say you're humanizing the track a little?
Uh, or using more familiar sounds, but our own methods of production anyways. For example, say that if at any given time we might be have complicating the track so much that there are 40 layers of sounds running. There could be 40 channels of sounds running simultaneously. Now, in a typical psytrance track, most of those sounds at the base root would also be synthesized, absolutely synthesized, not at all organic in any way. And that's kind of where a lot of commercial psytrance might take a different path, where we might use most of our sounds might be organic. For example, I might use sampled instruments like violins, veenas, sitars, whatever, anything at all. Orchestra, for example. A lot of orchestra is trending in our style of music nowadays. So it's about the choice of sounds being more natural versus being more electronic.
Right.
But we still use the same psychedelic trance kind of production, where we go full on with the number of channels that we can fit in and simultaneously put into harmony together.
Now, from
So
what you just said, for a layman, let me just present it out to a layman who's who's at least going to try and comprehend what, how at least comes Psy Trance is produced. Let's say from your world, you humanize this music a little bit. And also, it's not just about one or two layers of music. Like you said, it's multiple layers, and that's what you call channels. So all of this put together, produced in terms of a certain kind of a BPM that you put together, you have commercial Psy Trance.
pretty much. Now the BPM in my case varies a lot. I might have tracks as low as 110 BPM, which is not even a very common BPM for dance music. It's too slow for most dance music styles. While we go all the way to 220. And there are people who respond to it no matter what. Like there are some people who are fine with the BPM changing to whatever. What they care about is more that there's energy. The
Right.
energy is different from BPM. A lot of people might confuse that faster music means more energy, but that's not necessarily true, because a beat also has parts in it, like a molecule has atoms in it. Even a beat has parts in it, and sometimes some parts can have the same attack that increases the feel of the BPM anyways. So the energy changes, but again, the BPM is only a very tiny part of the story.
It's more to do towards the kind of sounds that are produced and not just the BPM. Yeah.
Pretty
And
much, yes.
yeah, and when it comes down to the music that you've gone on to hone for yourself in India, I mean, maybe today with all the tech and all of the things that we have around us, we could say, okay, you probably would be interested in it right away when you listen to it. But you also come from a time when this was considered, as like we spoke of earlier, as drugs music, right?
Yeah,
For you to
it is.
decide, okay, I'm going to get into this particular genre of style or get inspired by
Yeah.
watching or listening to a certain somebody, where did it kick off and how did the transition kick into from what were you doing earlier to into this?
Oh, this question's answer is very convenient for your city, because I discovered it at Pebble.
Okay.
Yeah, Pebble was the first time, Pebble in Bangalore was the first time that I heard Psy Trance. I used to think I had two left feet. I didn't care for music so much. Like I was put into a Hindustani classical music course by my
Oh my
parents. And
God. Wait, did you
yeah,
just say you were in Hindustani classical?
yeah, I learned harmonium and all, and I still use a little bit of those principles here and there.
And
In,
from Hindustani classical, are you telling me you're one of those people? This is unbelievable, I must say, because I'm going to actually put this like a promo as well. You're someone who went for Hindustani classical training, and now you're a commercial psytrance artist. Dude, do you know? Not many can think of even this happening at all.
but do you notice that a lot of psychedelic trance top tracks on earth, even those that perform the best, most of them are using Indian tunes, right? Like
True. I
at
mean,
least
they
20% of
would
them have
use
Indian
like
tunes.
Indian elements. I'm not going to deny that at all.
Yeah.
But then when you realize, like, dude, this guy just did Hindustani classical music training, and then he comes and plays psytrance. It's not something you hear like on a regular basis, right?
But
You might say
yes,
as humanizing as it could be, but it's very alien of a thought for many people.
Okay, look at it from my perspective in that case, or let me share the perspective so that it makes the connection more clear.
Yeah.
When there is already so much of Indian music in psychedelic trance, okay, psychedelic trance also originated in Goa and Thailand, right?
Mhm.
It's Israelis and French people who jammed with Indians with their techno while the Indians were playing organic music, and the blend created psychedelic trance from techno. Techno was sped up and organic music was added to it. That's how psychedelic trance originated. Eventually, it became more electronic, but initially, it wasn't that electronic. It was the blend of electronic and techno, of organic and techno music that created Psy Trance. Now, when all of this was happening in India, it's natural that a lot of Indian influence went into it consciously or unconsciously. We don't
Right.
know about that factor because these people are not into marketing. Psytrance producers, if they would be into marketing, they would have chosen a better,
Career
more
option or music.
making genre than this, right? So it was never focused on marketing or anything as such. But when you think of it from that side, that there is the organic element always has something Indian to do with it. For me, it was more easy to relate to psytrance than other electronic music genres because there's always something Indian running in at least 2 hours of psytrance music. You will find something Indian almost everywhere. And for me, that was like, that is something I'm familiar with. This is something I love. The two are connected anyways. Let me just strengthen that connection.
Fair enough. You made it sound very easy from your point of view, but it's still a little thought in our head. Like, wait, Hindustani classical, like you said, there are sounds in psytrance. I'm not going to deny that, but it's like perceptions that we have. I know perspectives are way different to understand people, but the perception that we have, like, wait, you just went and studied Hindustani classical music, and then suddenly you get into a completely extreme genre music away from this that has elements of Hindustani music. We understand, we've heard of it, but then it's like you have a holy person becoming unholy. That's how it is portrayed out because of the music choices that there are. Correct me if I'm
Sure.
wrong in saying this.
I understand the perspective of the general listeners out there, and you're absolutely valid about that. That is how most people think of it until they pay a closer attention. They don't change their perspective thereafter. They just understand that there is more to what they're understanding or
Correct.
seeing through. And then they make the connection to realize, ki, oh, there
Oh,
is more Indian classical in it. But this guy, like where I am different is that if I choose to use Indian classical, I go a little further than most of those tracks which are not being made by Indians. But I don't necessarily do it consciously. I realize that probably 3 months after I'm done touching that track, like we make a track, put it out there. Till
mhm.
then, we are very busy with that track. We don't think of it critically.
Right.
3 months later, when I am done marketing, everything is done. I'm tired of that track because I've heard it a little more number of times than the audiences have. So I have a fresh perspective when I revisit the track someday.
Right.
And that's when I discover that, oh, I have done a lot of Indian music in this, a little more than usual. But it works. I mean, or at least so I believe, and so does some Spotify number show here and there, that adding a little extra, going a little more authentic in any ethnic EDM track
Mhm.
tends to just make it a little more substantial in terms of the response that we get, or
Right.
so I feel looking at those numbers.
Now, being a commercial side trans is one thing, but also I'm guessing you would have not chosen this immediately. You probably would have been doing something before getting into this sort of music or this sort of a career. Could you tell us where were you at one point in time and then this happened?
Yeah, so I was not very confident about how much money this is ever going to make,
Right.
right? So the first thing that I wanted to do in life was to save up to invest in this because I wasn't high enough in life to not understand that it's going to be a very expensive journey to be a music producer and to be a DJ, which is what I was first. Before music production, I was just into DJing.
Mhm.
And back then also I mean, I was one of those who wanted to play it a little safe. So what I imagined was what I needed to get into the industry is what I needed to save. So I
Right.
was a hotel before that. I used to work with ITC. I trained it in fact Gardenia and Windsor in Bangalore as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that's while I was training at Windsor, I went to Pebble, and that's where I discovered Psytrance. Otherwise, I probably didn't even care to be a DJ. I didn't look into that as a career option ever in life before Pebble happened.
My God, you're just
Yeah.
revealing one thing after another that gets a lot more interesting. Like your first inspiration in Pebbles, and then Pebbles keeps coming back and forth. Well, there's also something about in this particular genre of music is it's very niche, and your kind of audience also is very niche, and it's not like there's going to be a massive fan following. But of course, online there would be people who keep listening to and stuff. We will come to the online side of it now. In terms of playing this music out to different audiences across the country, which place do you think is like best suited? I know I have a feeling that you might say Bangalore, but I'll still ask you anyway.
So two things. If I am to pull my crowd to in a city, for example, if I have a show in any city of India and I am to pull the crowd all by myself, I would say anywhere in South India where we have listenership for, because here people are happy to go just for music versus a lot of other places outside of South India. People want a blend of an experience, not just the music, which is something that you cannot always guarantee as a music producer. That is what the event organizer is there for, giving the blend of the experience. When I do my own events, then I am not looking at the experience part, because if I am a master of all trades, then definitely I'm doing something that is not really good enough for making me focus on music alone, right? I mean, the more number of things that you start focusing on, the lesser focus you get on
Yeah.
one
On other
particular
things.
thing is special enough. So in my case, I tend to prefer anywhere in South India where I have listenership, which includes Kerala, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and all. Like, to me, all of this is very similar a market. Bangalore just has a bigger volume than others in this style of music,
Oh,
because I believe that Bangalore's ear, ears of Bangalore are more musically trained than ears of anywhere else in India, in my opinion.
this is
And
very good to hear.
when it
Uh,
comes to general audience knowing the music, if I don't have to pull my audiences, then of course we prefer places like Goa and all, where the vibe is already set for the style of music. People come with those expectations that the
yeah,
music can be anything. While everywhere else they'll come with an expect. If it's not
expect.
my audience, they might expect Govinda's music to be there, which is probably not going to be there.
I like how you just corrected that without even mentioning a certain category, but go in that music. But when you also mentioned about Bangalore having great music knowledge, a lot of people even do mention this, but I think this is also because I think we as people are very adventurous with our music. There is no hard and fast rule. I'll only listen to this. We grew up with probably Bollywood, whatever, but eventually our tastes and preferences change and start building over time. And then a certain template is created, but we still go back to listen to a certain kind of music we heard back in the day. So there is no judgment of, so we might, just trip on each other. Hey, what is that music you're listening to? But it is just for the moment part of it.
But the good part is that, the variety that you guys get in your city, and the fact that the variety also gets crowd. We have variety. Kolkata, Hyderabad and all also offer the same amount of variety to the market, but there is not much audience for every kind of music, because people are not necessarily willing to do an experimental night out for music. Something about Bangalore allows people to do that experimental stuff. I would relate it to an Indian version of Berlin, where you can actually go out and make crazy music and you will have listeners. Someone would be there for you. That to me in the world is Berlin, but in India it's Bangalore.
It's funny how day for yesterday I was having a chat with an artist from Denmark, but who also believes in Berlin because she has played most of her time in Berlin. And I said, hope someday you do a B2B from Berlin to Bangalore, and you also represent Bangalore to Berlin. And I'm like, dude, it must be coming in from a place of a good thought because for us, I'll tell you why I think we are the way we are is because maybe because we're such a cosmopolitan city with different cultures and traditions. Of course, I'm going to add the weather factor also. We don't crib on anything. And this particular part of it, of, the mix that we have, maybe makes us
Yeah.
a lot more receptive and appreciating to whatever that is around and not just, okay, be very finicky in choosing this particular thing. Very experimental is because I think the cosmopolitan culture that is around.
Like what got you, for example, what got you into music? You're from Bangalore,
Uh-huh.
and you definitely have a wide variety of understanding of music and also a taste, right? You are open to a lot of things. So I'm guessing that that could be a lot of people in and around your community also who behave the same way. What
Yeah.
is it that makes you that way? Maybe if you know that, it could be the answer to why Bangalore, out of all the places, has that
I mean, I
diversity.
think I know, man. I think we're very adventurous in terms of music. We don't shy away from the kind of music that we should listen to or shouldn't listen to. I see this with a lot of my artist friends as well, because when they listen to certain songs, I'm like, I've never heard of this music. Usually, maybe 10 years ago, I'm like, what the fuck are they even playing? But over time, you tend to get to listen to, it's like, like very classical. And you
It's
listen
like
to,
eating a Karela. Once you eat a Karela, you don't like it.
yeah,
Eat it
but then
50
you,
times, then you start loving it.
yeah, it's a growing taste in terms of whatever genre and language, right? So that's the
Yeah.
case with it. Now, when we go in terms of psy trance music in India, I don't know how it only Goa seems to be standing out along with Bangalore. The others are mostly underground. But when you look at it in India and the global scene, where do you think we stand in terms of this genre of music?
Oh, in terms of having it present in parties and in venues and listenership, I believe that on Spotify, on SoundCloud and all, and YouTube and everything, I believe or I can measure that India would probably have the largest volume of listeners of Psytrance in the world. Largest for sure, because even a Brazilian artist or an Israeli artist, they all know that lot many times more than 40% of their listenership is from India. The
Right.
rest might be from Brazil, Israel, Germany, France, and a few other countries. But the big volume comes from India, no doubt, when it comes to home listeners. When it comes to events, I believe that we have a lot of events, but I won't say that they are able to afford to give the same experience that a lot of Brazilian, German, and all these festivals are able to give. Although the scene would have started in the early 90s in Goa and India, while it would have started probably in 2005, 2008, when Infected Mushroom became a mainstream
Mhm.
artist. Because that is when most of the other countries got exposed to Psytrance, when Infected Mushroom really became a very mainstream artist in the top 10 ranks of DJs and blah, blah, blah. That was the time when I could notice that this music is literally everywhere when it comes to a dance floor. But when it comes to India, I believe that a lot of stagnation happened around the time when Psytrance was growing. Maybe to the nightlife, maybe to parties in general. I wasn't even 18 plus to understand all that because I wasn't a part of the party circle at then. Or I was, but not something that you would
Something like so
mind
deep
to be
in
a part
dwelling
of.
in.
Yeah. Somebody dragged you to a party because you were too young to be going yourself. But at the same time, I believe that while we have a variety of listenership and we have a variety of events, it's the investment that is definitely more prominent in certain other countries where the scene is going a little healthier.
Mhm.
Like Brazil and Germany have a very healthy scene of psytrance going. And of course, that preconception over here that psytrance equals to drugs, that doesn't help it grow in any way whatsoever.
Misconceptions can stay misconceptions. Now,
Yeah.
the thing is, once when you look about the market in India and globally, the next question probably would be about, the future of this sort of a music. Because this is not a music that suddenly has talent going to a certain class, learning and coming. Because you go and learn a certain machine and then you tend to figure out, okay, which style I like, and then you get that music, and then you also start producing. So when you look at the future of it, it's not like it's prone to be really big, at least from a regular person's point of view. But there are chances there could be somebody who could be, damn good, like could just be out of the park and be from somewhere like our neighborhood of sorts. So when you look at the future of this globally in India, what do you look at it?
So globally, I believe that it keeps, it's one of those genres that keeps having trends, uptrends and downtrends. Like I would say that for even techno, that is more real techno than the
Right.
commercial techno today that you talk about. For example, if you are looking at an artist like Boris Brejcha, that sort of a music, that is
Uh-huh.
more techno before techno started becoming a very, very much deep house, right? Today, when you say techno, you pretty much mean deep house because of how the two genres have become really close and overlapped. But before that, if you look at techno, the underground version of techno, it had ups and downs from the 1970s. Every 10, 15 years, you can see that it's become very prominent and then gone down. And typically, the graph of psytrance has run in the opposite direction of that. Though it's definitely smaller than the techno scene because the techno scene is based mainly out of Detroit and Berlin, while the psytrance scene is based out of cities that are less popularly known across the globe. Right? So they influence fewer people than that genre would influence because of course the US and Germany influence music a lot. So any music that is trending in those two countries tends to trend across the globe more easily. So in that, if you notice that whenever there's some artist that's grown really big, for example, there was a time when Infected Mushroom were very big. Then there's a time when Armin van Buuren's track led him all the way to a very great rank. There was this track called The Great Spirit that almost everybody who knows partying has probably heard that track. When that track was trending, then, one single artist performing very well is able to change the course of the genre across the globe, right? So, because it's not that gigantic a genre.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then you know that if there is someday an artist who is able to take it to a very mainstream size, you know that it's going to turn mainstream for that time. So it kind of depends on
The trend.
artists who are associated with it because some artists can be as powerful as a genre itself sometimes.
Yeah.
Nobody can be as powerful as pop music itself, right? Because no matter who you are, you can probably make pop a little more popular, but it's already popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't be bigger than pop music as an artist. You can say that there are some underground styles of music where one of those artists of the music can influence them to be bigger as a genre than otherwise. For example, Nuclear, minus him and that style of music in India almost doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He's bigger than the genre of music itself, right? People don't know what genre it is. There are a lot of people who don't know what genre it is, but they know him.
I know what you're getting at in terms of, at least for those of you who are wondering, it's drum and bass. Correct me if I'm wrong, Novlik.
No.
Yeah, so that is difficult to figure out, especially certain kinds of genres of music. There are many which haven't been discovered yet, I'm sure. But eventually, in time, they'll start popping up like mushrooms, and they'll go back to where they came from. But
Yeah.
in terms of your future as a musician, with Psytrance, what are your plans and what do you plan on doing for the rest of the next couple of months and years that you have it?
Firstly, if I was such a great planner, I would have probably not been a musician.
Uh,
Those planners, they are in more corporate industries and different jobs.
right.
As a musician, you're probably a little more chilled out in life, which is why you chose this field, because it's not going to be the world's biggest income maker for the time being. It
Uh-huh.
might for somebody. That's probably not everybody's plan, right? So when it comes to future and all, how I plan, I believe that I plan to see where it takes me instead of take it somewhere deliberately, because I believe that if you calculate everything, then I don't know what's the art in that.
Mm-hmm.
That seems very strategic. And I didn't leave a boring job which had so many rules only to live another life where I have so many rules. I left that job for something that I'd risk my life with and my career with and my future with. But I'll take the risk that comes with it, no matter what it really means. I mean, we'll see. But nonetheless, I plan to keep making it better and better. That's about it, without necessarily a defined goal.
Man, that is something that a lot of us could take a little heat from. Some may not be true, but there's quite a bit that some of us can resonate and go about it. There's too much of stress in this world that lets you just lose your head so many times. Now, from that to
Yeah.
let me give you a little bit of a stress now, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, and I don't want you to take too much of time, but answer them as quickly as you can.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Your favorite festival to perform at?
Boom Festival, Portugal.
Okay. Goa, Himachal for Psytrance vibes.
Now Himachal.
And this is very important, I'm guessing. Analog synths or digital plugins?
Now digital plugins.
Your dream collaboration would be?
Infected mushroom.
The favorite track you produced?
Oh, very difficult one. Here to stay.
This I think I know the answer, but I'll still go at it. Most inspiring city for making music?
In India, Bangalore.
Thanks, man. Night owl or early riser?
Night.
One artist who's on repeat in your playlist?
Myself.
That's good, bro.
Like
We
old tracks because it's easy to see your mistakes in an old track.
uh, it's more like
Yeah.
an analysis of your craft, so that's really good.
Yeah.
Pre-show ritual?
Pre-show ritual. I go to the gym.
Not to other places that a lot of people must be thinking because the kind of music you produce. So that's very good. A beverage you consume while producing?
Water.
Oh, smart one.
I'm the most boring artist you'll find.
Not with the music that you play, bro. Biggest
Thank you.
source of inspiration outside of music?
Oh, Ferrari story.
Oh,
Well, they also do something that they don't give a rat's ass about if it works or not, right? They do it passionately.
passion, a word that has been overused but under practiced of late. And one word that you describe your music with?
Bonkers.
Bonkers. And honest to God, thank you. Firstly, thank you for this chat and giving us a little window into a peep into what your lifestyle is about, what this music is about. And I've never heard a psytrance track that sounds happy apart from yours. I'll be honest about that. Okay,
Thank you.
because I've gone for psytrance gigs, but then it's also like heavy hitting BPMs, and it's
Yeah.
like sometimes it just might, especially when you're standing by the speaker, it's a headache bound to happen. But to be very honest, not because you are part of Bob's radio or anything, but it does sound very nice. It sounds happy. Of course, the BPM levels are higher than normal, and some are thing, but I think it's the rhythm that is there that actually seems like the BPM is higher. So thanks for
I
getting.
try to make music for normal humans as well as psytrance lovers. That's kind of what I
I
try
like
to
how
do
you
all the time.
categorize normal humans and psytrance lovers.
That something is off with us when we love psytrance. I know that something is off with us.
Not
I just
really.
don't know what yet.
It's just a choice. It's a choice of genre of music, or you just indulge in one genre at one particular time. There's nothing wrong in that.
Yeah.
And thank you once
Yeah.
again.
The
I
rest
look
is a
forward
joke.
to getting a
Thank
lot
you.
more music from you. And your music is going to go on every Friday in the Dance Music Hour. I think I
Yeah.
talked about this. And we look forward to getting more and look forward to chatting a lot more with new music coming from your side. And I can't wait to attend a gig of yours
Okay.
either wherever you play. I hope to catch you someday, man.
I'll try to make a show in Bangalore soon.